Hello. Today's video is going to focus on 80-20 training, polarized training, make your hard days hard, your easy days easy, that kind of thing. My focus is going to be how I apply these things to my own running. And I think that it can also apply to those who are recreational runners who run low mileage, not every day, maybe 3 to 4, at the most 5 days a week. So this video will apply to you and how you apply 80-20 running to your program. Keep watching, and I invite you to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Hello, I'm Tom. I'm a 65-year-old runner who likes to compete in road races occasionally. You could probably categorize me as a recreational runner, however you want to define that term. So this video will apply to all of you who are competitive yet recreational. In my last video, I covered MOF training, low heart rate training, zone 2 training. My conclusion was that I can't apply those methods to my own running because I'd essentially be walking. They required that my heart rate be at roughly 100 beats per minute, which is a walk for me, not even a brisk walk. So I concluded that those methods of low heart rate training, which would be considered the aerobic zone, don't work for me. I'm a runner. I want to run. However, I discovered a fella named Greg McMillan. Greg McMillan is a well-known coach, has coached top runners, elite runners. He's also an exercise scientist. So Greg McMillan developed a pace calculator. And I really like his calculator. It's something that I actually can apply to my own running and my own training. He goes by pace, not by heart rate. And that's how he developed this particular calculator. Not that he ignores heart rate. I'm sure that that factored into developing this calculator. Basically what you do is and by the way, you can find this on his website, and I'll go ahead and post it on the screen for you so that you can figure out your own paces. So essentially he has you post your recent times for any race. It could be a 5K, 10K, marathon, half marathon, whatever. And he takes your current best time. He also takes your goal time. For me, it was my current 5K time and my goal time for a 5K. And I didn't make it like this hugely unrealistic goal. Okay, by the way, so I don't want to go skewing this thing. Very realistic goal. Actually, it's not even my 60-year-old PR. It actually ties my 60-year-old PR. So you enter these in, and the calculator spits out various paces for various kinds of training. Just so happens that my current running speed for my easy runs coincide with Greg McMillan's easy runs for me. So he has 3 types of slower runs. One would be a recovery run, another would be an easy run, and another would be the long day run. And they do have different paces, but on average, it's right in line with what my paces are for my easy days. So I'm going to go with Greg McMillan rather than the MOF system, or rather than the standard Zone 2 system, which would require that I walk. I'm going to start by giving a little bit of a history of 80-20 training. It all started in the mid-1940s by a famous, well-known coach who you may have heard about named Arthur Lydiard. He was a rugby player who worked at a shoe factory, and he thought he was in pretty good shape until a friend invited him to go on a 5-mile run. Lydiard discovered during and after this 5-mile run that he was not in as good a shape as he thought. He was very fatigued, very tired. So he took this as a challenge, and ultimately he came up with a theory that long, slow running, putting in a lot of miles of slow running, would improve performance. And he used himself as a guinea pig. He ran upwards of 250 miles a week, mass amounts of running, to test out his theory. He did discover that 250 miles was too much. Of course, you and I would say, well, of course that was too much. But he tested it out. And he lowered it to closer to 200. His improvement was a little bit better than doing 250 miles a week. Then he lowered it again to like 100, 120 miles a week, as well as running below 100 miles a week. But Lydiard's conclusions, just using himself as the guinea pig, was that running aerobically at 100, 120 miles a week resulted in optimal performance in races. Lydiard proved this theory to be correct in the 1950s by winning 2 New Zealand national championships in the marathon. Then he decided to become a coach. He was also very outspoken about his training methods, claiming they were very good, the best training methods, and so he began to coach. Ultimately, he attracted such runners. You may have heard of Peter Snell, winner of the 800 meters in the 1960 Rome Olympics, and the winner of both the 1500 meters and 800 meters in the Tokyo Olympics. And Lydiard also coached Murray Halberg, who won the 5,000 meters, I believe, in the Tokyo Olympics. And Lydiard had other medalists as well that he trained. So he soon became a great coach. And not only were his runners great, but other coaches began to follow his theory and began to put out championship runners. You may have heard of 80-20 training through Matt Fitzgerald's book called 80-20 Training. But originally that term was coined by Stephen Seiler, an exercise physiologist. He started out with a theory, but then he backed it up with research. The theory was that runners, if they want to perform at their best, should run 80% of their training at an easy pace and 20% at a hard pace. And the result would be improved performance, as in race performance. So he did some experiments where, on a large group of test subjects, where some did 80% easy aerobic, 20% hard anaerobic kind of training. Others did 50% aerobic, 50% anaerobic. Others did close to 100% aerobic and close to 0% anaerobic. And the other way around, where people did predominantly anaerobic and a very low percentage of aerobic running. And his conclusions from all the test groups, in a nutshell, his conclusions were that the 80-20 formula, approximately 80%, 20% formula, worked best for optimal performance. So Stephen Seiler took Arthur Lydiard's method and basically brought it into the laboratory, not a literal laboratory, but just research by large groups of runners, and found that Lydiard's method was true. And Lydiard, by the way, had his athletes didn't just do 100% aerobic running. They did roughly 20% anaerobic running or hard running. Aerobic running meaning with oxygen, anaerobic meaning without oxygen. When you're running really hard in oxygen debt, for those of you that aren't familiar with these terms, you're running anaerobically. And so Lydiard did a combination of both, mostly aerobic running and about 20% anaerobic. And Seiler backed that up with science, that it indeed worked. And it works not just for runners, but it works for cyclists, works for triathletes, swimmers, that kind of thing. So I'll go ahead and switch to how I apply this 80-20 method to my own running. I do a combination of running and cross training. My main method of cross training is the elliptical. Oh, the particular gym doesn't have an arc trainer, but they have a type of elliptical that is similar to the arc trainer, which, according to my understanding, is a fairly close imitation of running, but it's non-jarring, non-pounding, and so it's easy on the bones, ligaments, muscles, that kind of a thing. I happen to be injury prone, which I've mentioned in previous videos. So I run 3 days a week, and I do the elliptical arc trainer 2 days a week. That's 5 total days per week. I do 1 day per week of hard anaerobic running. Not that hard. That means I'm doing, if you calculate it out, since I'm training 5 days per week, 1 day would be about 20%. Doing it this way, I just happen to be following the 80-20 rule. My reasons are primarily injury prevention. If I do more than 1 day a week of hard workouts, then I'll be running the risk of injury. It's a rule of thumb that the faster you run, the more at risk for injury you are. So that's my primary reason for doing that, but it just so happens that that's a good method, and that's how I apply it to my own running routine. I'm a very low mileage runner. I only put in about 18 miles a week of running, and currently my cross training or elliptical arc is about 30 minutes per session. My goal is to increase that and go for like 45 minutes, maybe even up to an hour training. Essentially, I'd like to, if I could, I would train as much as I possibly could to make myself a more competitive, wink wink, recreational runner. But I'm limited just simply because I'm injury prone. So the way to fill in that gap and add more training would be the cross training, which is a lot easier on the body. So that's how I apply it. I hope this video was helpful to you, and keep watching.